and environment means that which surrounds you. And so I love the idea that we're an architecture school that designs that which surrounds you, because frankly, most schools, you design objects. As an architect who's interested in urbanism, I like to work at the scale of the block, because it's not urban planning. It's not so big that you can't do an architectural project, but it forces the students to look beyond the property line, because usually an architecture commission is for one piece of property in one building. It lacks a kind of consideration of neighbors and integrating one building to the next. So I call it blockology. We study the block. We're working in Tynan, Taiwan, which is Dutch founded 400 years ago, just like New York City, New Amsterdam 400 years ago. The Dutch were soon kicked out, but Tynan became the capital of Ming and Qing dynasty in southern Taiwan, but then the Japanese came in and they kind of carved up this existing city with a series of block grids. On the outside, they kind of look the same, because the Japanese built this street grid, and all the buildings are arcaded, and they're commercial buildings with residential above. But then you go inside the block, and there's small little lanes from the Ming and Qing dynasty cities, and the temples, and the old houses. And so we concocted this way where his students could do video and interviews with residents and give us all the field information while we did the studio here. And the idea of a blockology is that somehow with the issues of social justice and climate change, that we can handle that better at the scale of the community unit of a block than individual properties one after another.
We began the semester doing research about Tynan, and within that research we found out that a lot of microchips are produced in Taiwan. One of the unlikely side effects of this microchip production is actually it uses so much water to cool down the processes of creating these chips, and within that process there's a water scarcity that is created. Additionally, the block and Taiwan as an island finds itself in a precarious situation because they're a small state and they're surrounded by not only geopolitical pressures but also climatic pressures like typhoons and a lot of rainfall. So I thought of taking this precarious condition of so much rainfall but also this problem of water scarcity and finding a solution by seeing the intersection of both and harnessing that rainwater or excess rainwater to solve this problem. Within a grid system, I'm creating rooftops that are shaped in a way to direct rainwater into 3 different main water tanks that will then be used for laundry.
So my project focuses on a specific corner of the block, and in this block it's usually not as activated. It is the back of many restaurants, so not a lot of people are able to really interact in that specific part of the block. So what I aim to do is activate this part of the block by adding different rooms and calling it a public house, where people across the block and even guests and tourists can come into this public house and be able to connect with one another, socialize, and encourage relationships to be formed. And what's so special about this class is that we are able to kind of think about visuals and architecture and structures at the same time. So in the beginning of the class, we were asked to create storyboards of how we envision our structures being involved in the block and how people interact, how people would interact with our structures.
The block is so large and complex and has been built on top of each other for so much time that it's really difficult to imagine this place not being there. And through the help of our Taiwanese student friends, we're seeing the block from these different perspectives and almost thinking about it in elevation and section while we draw, thinking of this video as our architectural drawings themselves.
With all these workshops, Professor Shea was applying to curate the Taiwan Pavilion of the Venice Biennale, and so that was successful this year, and so this studio will be part of the Biennale exhibition. And it's called the Sensory Motor Cities. So the experience for my students to have their work exhibited in Venice during the Biennale is quite extraordinary, and they're extremely excited and a little bit nervous about it.
I feel honored to be included in such a huge event, and I thank Brian for even giving us this opportunity. The fact that this is going to be presented to so many people from various different paths of life is something that I feel lucky about. I hope that this project inspires other people and other students to be able to think about blockology and think about architecture in a different lens.
I think working on a project like this has completely changed my perspective on my studies. Previously, I had worked on making projects on sites that were relatively free, and we were just, erecting something from there. But working within a site where everything's already existed, there's this culture, there's people living there, it's a neighborhood, and it's not going to be changed. We're kind of building with it and along with it. That's been a really difficult process and challenging learning curve, but it's been amazing because it's made me rethink what our building's impact is in the world and how does that change where we're building and the people that live there. It's been a really particular and specific project, and I think that has really broadened my perspective on architecture.